Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to dive into something that can feel really like a mountain, but it's really not. It's starting an LLC, specifically here in Arizona. Today I have Lidia with me. She's our office manager for one of our companies, and she has actually started an LLC in the past. She gets to watch us work in our company on a day-to-day basis and watch me rip my hair out from time to time. But before we get started, I'd like to encourage everybody to grab paper, grab a pen, take down some notes. That way you don't really miss anything. Of course, if you're watching this on video, you can always just run it back. But take notes. We're going to cover a few things. This is just a short video, but it's going to have some pretty good little nuggets into it. So I know that a lot of this is going to seem like a lot. It's a lot to go through in the very beginning when you're trying to start a business. But it really can be broken down into some pretty simple steps, I think.
Yeah.
First thing, when I started my business, I really had no idea, what I was really getting into. I had the fundamentals of what business it took to start a business, where I need to go and what to set up and stuff, but I didn't know the full ins and outs of it. And as I moved along, I made a lot of errors along the way.
As most people do,
Yeah.
especially when you start your own business, it's a lot.
There's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to cover the basics. So, the things that you need to have in order to start your LLC. So the first thing let's talk about is what an LLC actually is. So an LLC is actually a limited liability company. And what that does is it actually protects you, in case something goes to come up, like, a lawsuit was to come out, somebody was to fall on your property. If you owned a property, like you had started a business with doing, what was it, residential?
So we started an assisted living home, and with the LLC, it protects you if somebody falls in your home, if something happens in the home. With the LLC, you have that protection because you need specific insurance. So if somebody does want to sue you, they can only sue the business and they can't sue you personally.
Right. So that's why LLCs are probably one of the most popular forms of setting up a company. Of course, we've talked about it in other podcasts. There's a sole proprietorship. There's actually setting up a corporation. You got a C corp or an S corp, depending on what you want. Always want to talk to probably a business attorney or a tax attorney to help you formulate that, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, because I know when we started off, we started as an LLC, and then I learned that when you file taxes, that's when you can file as an S corp and stuff like that. Because when we first started, I didn't know the difference from like LLC to S corp or anything like that, because I thought that you could register as an S corp from the very beginning.
Again, that's why it's really good to, if you're going to do this, you want to start your business, get with the tax attorney to get all that set up from the very beginning. So for those that are listening outside of Arizona, I know that we said specifically for Arizona, but this is also something that, transcends really across state lines. The fundamentals are always there. Each state has a little different nuance to it, but for the most part, the fundamentals still apply. So now that we've covered what an LLC is and why you might want to choose that, the first thing you need to do is you got to choose a name. I know I talked about that in another podcast about choosing a name, but you got to start with a name that for your LLC that makes you unique.
Yeah.
If you do a specific task, I think that your business should kind of fit that name and that task that you do.
Yeah, your name should make sense to what your business is. And I know one thing that a lot of people don't think about is searching the name that you want on every platform and making sure that that domain name is available, because you might choose your name for your LLC and your business, but then when you go to make an email address, a website, all of those names are taken, and then you started an LLC, which they're not expensive to start, but it's just you're going to have to go back and then figure out a new name and everything.
The worst thing that can happen is you're 5 years into it and somebody comes back and says, hey, that's my name.
Yeah.
I watched that happen once. So let me give you a little example of choosing a name. So it was probably about 10 o'clock at night. My wife was on the couch. She's asleep, knocked completely out. And I am just racking my brain around what I wanted to name the company. And I had a whole huge, passionate vision for what my company was going to be. And it was going to be everything. It was my business, everything. So I ended up naming my company Foundation Up Home Services because that's what I was going to do. I was going to do home services from the foundation up. And in my mind, it made great sense. And when I woke my wife up at 10:30 at night to tell her I figured it out, she's like, "Why is that name so long? And what does it mean?" I was like, "No, you're focused on the wrong part, and go back to sleep." So fast forward, just even 6 months, I got more phone calls for foundation requests.
Yeah.
And that's not what we do. We're a home inspection company. Pick a name that works. So I don't do foundation inspections as just a sole inspection. It's a home inspection is what we do from the foundation up. But that didn't transcend to the audience.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you choose a name that fits. Next thing you want to do is you want to, when you're setting up your LLC, you want to appoint a statutory agent. So a statutory agent is actually somebody that's going to receive all correspondence for anything that might be, a legal document or something like that. It's something that would be sent to your corporation. For us, we set up an attorney. He's our statutory. So if we get anything from a client or anything like that, he will actually receive it, and then he lets us know what it was and what the action should be. Did you guys do that?
Yes, we did. I can't remember who we chose as ours, but can you be the statutory agent for your own company, or do you need somebody else?
Absolutely, you can absolutely be the one.
Yeah.
So you can, when you set up your when you set up the LLC or your articles, it's going to ask you who the statutory agent is, and you can list yourself with your address, or you can set up the address of the person you want to be the statutory. They don't have to be affiliated with your company at all. It doesn't have to be a lawyer. It can be really anybody that you want. Next thing is you want to file your articles of organization. So this is a big one. Filing the articles of organization with the Arizona Corporation Commission can be done online. It does cost a fee. Everybody wants to get paid. Everybody's in business. But that is probably the most important. That's what's actually going to make you a business. The Arizona Corporation Commission, when you submit with them, you're going to submit the name that you've chosen, and they're going to run it across the database and see if anybody else has it in Arizona. It doesn't go nationwide. If you want to check nationwide, you can always Google it.
There's a lot of resources on Google for that.
I am a big fan of ChatGPT right now, and if you type it in, it will absolutely tell you. So you can always use that one. How did you choose your name?
Honestly, it was very easy because the community that we lived in was called Vanderbilt Farms. So we chose that name, and we did Vanderbilt Farms Assisted Living. So it was pretty easy to.
And assisted living was in the name. How about that? Instead of Vanderbilt Foundation.
Yeah.
Getting phone calls for foundation inspections. You want to make sure that you also create some sort of an operating agreement. Now, this isn't necessary. It isn't mandatory. But an operating agreement is kind of like the rules of the game for your company. It tells you who is in charge. It tells you how you're going to pay bonuses. It's going to tell you how you're going to do your pay structure. It lays out the roles for the company. Again, it's not absolutely necessary, especially if you're going to be like a sole proprietor. If you're going to be a solopreneur, you can kind of forgo that step. But it's still a good idea. So when you set up your company, you always want to set it up. What do you envision that company looking like in 10 years? And set it up from the very beginning, and that means.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if you're creating a business that you want it to grow, I think the first step should be figuring out how you're going to structure your business and everything. So then that way you're not playing catch up, like a year, 2 years down the line when you have employees, you have all of this, and you have no idea like how to structure anything. So if you have that in place, one, you know how you're going to do it, but then also it kind of brings life to your vision, so.
Right. Once you've completed the operating agreement, or maybe not, the next step that you want to do is you want to get your EIN from the IRS. Now, this is important because it is for tax purposes. So this is what registers you with the government as a actual entity. There's just a lot of things that you cannot do if you don't have your EIN from the IRS.
Yes.
Now, one thing I will, and I mentioned this in another podcast, one thing I will tell you is you can do this for free. Do not fall for it, paying for getting your EIN. I fell into that one. I paid for somebody to set up my EIN when I found out that all I had to do was just go to irs.gov and do it.
Yeah. And it actually is a little tricky because when you Google it, you have to be very careful that you're clicking on the irs.gov website because there are a lot of IRS websites out there that say that they can do it, but they're going to charge you, and it does not cost money.
Right. Yeah. You can absolutely do it for
Yeah.
free on the irs.gov. And then as with anything, you want to seek guidance from a professional. So we're going to give you these steps, but at the end of the day, you really need to make sure you're checking with a business attorney to help set up your operating agreement if you're going to do that. Help you with your articles if you're having some struggles with it. I mean, you can do it on your own, but it's always good to have the advice. Tax attorneys, very, very important. Accountants to help get all that set up for you.
Yeah, because it can be very overwhelming, especially depending on what type of business you're opening when you don't have any guidance. So I think it's always very smart, like if you have a mentor in mind or just a company that you like how they run things, it doesn't hurt to reach out to ask them a few questions. The worst thing they can say is no, and then you just move on. But most people are very willing to share advice because most people do it on their own and they have learned from their mistakes. So they will pass on what they've learned to others.
Yeah.
So
speaking of mistakes, here's some things that you can look at when it comes to starting your business. Again, we've covered a lot of we've covered the 6 basics of starting this business, and we say that it can be overwhelming. You can actually do this in an hour. The whole thing can be done in an hour if you got a quick wit and you can come up with a good name. But yeah, about an hour you can set all this up. But here's some things that you need to look at to avoid, making some pretty dramatic pitfalls. First thing is not planning long term. That is probably one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of business owners, or new business owners do. They don't plan for the future. So when I started my company, what I did is I looked at where I wanted that company to be 10 years down the road. And then I reverse planned where I wanted to be, or how to get there. I'm sorry. That long-term planning has really helped guide me and direct me and keep me targeted on what I want.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a huge pitfall for some, is they don't plan for the future. They see it right now. They're passionate. They have a vision and they just run with it, and they didn't plan it out. They didn't look into the future.
Yeah. And I feel like that can cause a lot of problems too, because if you don't have a plan long term, you're going to end up hitting a plateau, and then you're not going to know what to do to take the next steps to grow your business even more.
Exactly.
So, it's either you figure it out or your business ends up failing, or you just are stuck where you're at and there's no growth.
Yep. Other thing is mixing your personal and your business finances. You cannot do that, especially if you start moving into like a C corporation or an S corporation. You cannot mix those. Even as an LLC, you can lose your LLC status if you are mixing your personal finances with your business finances. That's a pitfall for some. A lot of people, they'll start these businesses and like, this is going to be their thing. And what they end up finding out is, all their money's going into the business. Well, becomes a piggy bank for them, and you can't do that. Basically, that money belongs to the company. You got to treat it as such. Take your salary out of there, but don't go diving into that money.
Yeah. And also when you file taxes, it makes things a lot more difficult when you have expenses from both your personal and your business and everything is commingled.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more difficult to file taxes. And then you also won't be able to write off what you should be able to write off because, it's just, it just causes a lot of problems.
And then you want to make sure that, you're not neglecting any compliance things with your company. You want to make sure you're hitting all your renewals. And we have a lot of subscription renewals in our business. So, you don't want to miss those because those can actually put you dead in the water. I know for us, we got a couple of subscriptions that if we did not maintain them, we couldn't operate.
We wouldn't be able to schedule anything.
We might as well go ahead and just sit in the podcast room and make podcasts because that's about all we would be able to do.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, and this is where almost every new business owner, this is the trap they fall into. It's not working on your business. You work in the business. You become the technician and the CEO, and you end up spending more of your time as the technician working in the business. And if you're not working on the business, your business cannot move forward. It's not, and I don't say that, lightly. It's you truly can't move forward if you don't work on it.
Yeah. No, because I think a lot of times when people start a business, I think they worry about delegating because obviously you trust yourself more than anybody else, So like, that you can do it yourself, but do you trust somebody else to do these other tasks for you to focus on actually like working on your business and how your business is going to grow?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are scared of just like hiring support staff to help them because they're like, well, that's an extra salary. It's money out of my pocket. Is it really going to benefit me? And you just need to think about where you want your business to be. And are you going to be able to carry your whole entire business, everything that goes into running the day-to-day on your back and your back only, like for the whole entire span of your business? And that's not logical and realistic for most people.
Yeah, no billionaire ever ran a company on their own back.
Yeah.
So it took me 5 years to finally hire my first real employee. Welcome, Lydia.
Thank you.
And I will say you've been running my business for 6 months now, 3 months now.
Three.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
going on 4,
yeah,
I think.
December 6th.
Yeah.
And in all honesty and total candor, it was tough. I mean, I was it for 5 years. And I had Tom also, but Tom's doing the same thing on his side, and he didn't have a problem. The day you were hired, he immediately transferred. Yeah,
Tom was all like, "Here's all of my stuff. It's all you."
But I'm a little bit more of a control freak, but I've been doing it a little bit longer than he has, and so it was a tough transition. So that's why new business owners fall into that pitfall.
Yeah,
it's that letting go, and you're right. It's tough, because you trust yourself. The big benefit for me is I had already worked with you in the past, so I knew what you're capable of.
Yeah.
So
I forget who said it. I remember I was listening to a business podcast once, and the guy was essentially saying, if what you are doing and working on is not making you money, then you can delegate it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a smart thing to have in the back of your mind, because as the business owner, you need to think big picture. And is it really worth that extra 1 or 2 hours that you're going to be taken away from actually running your business to work on something that you can delegate to somebody else? Yeah.
So for all my fellow veterans out there, you also have some extra resources to help you along the journey. So you can reach out to the Small Business Administration, the SBA. They have mentoring programs for veterans. They have programs such as the Boots to Business. It's a great program. It's small business owners. I would say like me, but not really because I'm not to that level yet. But they are small business owners that are there in the community. They've done it. They've been there. They've done it. They have their businesses. They might have several businesses, and they're there and they work for free. They volunteer their time to help grow other people's businesses. So those options are out there. You can always reach out to the Veterans Administration, see if there's anything there. You can always reach out to us as well. We'll be glad to help out. So I know that we've covered a lot. There's a lot here, and I hope that just some of these little things that that we've talked about here will help kind of guide you in the right direction and help you avoid some of the pitfalls. There's a lot more to this. I mean, this is only going to be maybe a 15, 20-minute video, and this is a lifetime worth of information that you can attain. So reach out to people that you trust, reach out to some mentor groups. You can reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you out with that. So there you have it. There's a quick breakdown of, starting an LLC here in Arizona. It might seem like a lot, but it's really just a step-by-step process, and it's really manageable. If you have any questions or further guidance or need further guidance, feel free to reach out to me at info@foundationupllc.com. Or you can just drop a comment below. I'll definitely get back to you. Lydia can get back to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and how I can help you out in any way. So thank you for tuning in. And remember, you're not alone. Later.